the cross by allowing the fiery trials, not withholding the fiery trials that burn the dross. Oh, my soul, take courage when you feel the heat. The flames are only to purify, not to consume completely. God uses the fiery trials, the fiery trials. He allows the fiery trials to burn only the dross. Sometimes we bear the consequences of another one's mistake. Other times we pay the price for a wrong road we chose to take. But God uses the fiery trials, the fiery trials. He cleanses with fiery trials and burn only the dross. God is not the author of the pain you feel. It is Satan casting shadows as your joy he wants to steal. But God uses the fiery trials, the fiery trials. He transforms the fiery trials into blessings, blessings and joy. So my Lord, I thank you, even though it hurts so much. Change my heart, renew me with your healing touch. I submit to your fiery trials, your fiery trials. Walk me through the fiery trials and burn the dross. I submit to your fiery trials, the fiery trials. Thank you for the fiery trials that burn the dross.
Good afternoon, viewers. It is my singular pleasure and privilege to come to you this afternoon to present a program around gender-based violence. It is August, and in South Africa, this is Women's Month. It is a month where we celebrate women, a month where we look at issues that affect women, and we celebrate Imbogodo, we celebrate mothers and grandmothers, we celebrate stepmoms, and celebrate single mothers, the ones who make sacrifices for their children. You know, we celebrate the spirit of sisterhood, of courage. We celebrate ourselves, the women we are, the women we are bringing up. And as we aspire to better our lives and make better communities, we celebrate whatever is beautiful around us. And we look back also and we remember those who have gone before us. And we know that the freedom that we enjoy, particularly in South Africa, has been bought at a price. There are people who have had to lay down their lives, who have had to celebrate, who have had to sacrifice things in order to get us to where we are at. And we are aware, yes, that we have come a long way. And yet we still have a long way to go. You know, the journey to freedom and emancipation is not complete for us as women. We are hoping that by the grace of God, we are going to roll our sleeves and are going to work, yes, even fight for women and girl children so that we can get to a point where everyone can roam freely the streets of this land without any fear. As we all know, South Africa holds the shameful distinction of being one of the most unsafe places in the world to be a woman. We have among the highest rates of intimate partner violence, and recently released statistics show that rape and sexual violence have become hyper-endemic. It's a scourge that affects us all, whether we're black or white or Indian or colored, whether you are young or old, whether you are rich or poor, whether you are from a rural or an urban background. It pervades every sphere of our society. And if you can even Google and go back to the newspaper headlines that we see in our spaces, you will hear something like South Africa, a nation at war with its women. South African men murder their women at the rate of 3 per day. South Africa, the rape capital of the world. In fact, someone has even written, in South Africa, a girl child has a better chance of being raped than that of getting an education. Such statements are common in South Africa, with this gender-based violence statistics placed in the top 3 or in the top 3 of the global statistics, And this is despite the fact that South Africa has got the most beautiful constitution in the world. So what is gender-based violence? Gender-based violence is an umbrella term for any harm that is perpetuated against an individual's will that has a negative impact on that person's physical or psychological health, development, and identity, and is a result of gendered power relations. How prevalent is it in South Africa? We don't want to be talking about something that we're not even sure, is it that serious? 51% women in South Africa say they have experienced gender-based violence in one form or another. This is a study that was conducted in Gauteng in 2017. And a similar study conducted in KZN, from where I am coming, revealed that 1 in 3 women report that they have experienced violence at the hands of a partner. And I want you to underline, this is not at the hands of some stranger. This is not at the hands of someone you meet randomly at the street. We are talking about someone who is supposed to be your protector, someone who's supposed to love you and shelter you and take good care of you. And as we know, femicide, which is the killing of a woman or a girl child, in particular by a man, and on account of her gender, is 5 times the global average. In fact, in 2019-2020, according to Statistics South Africa, a total of 2,695 women were murdered in South Africa. This is according to the SAPS test that was given. This means a woman is murdered every 3 hours. Imagine, this is a land that is supposed to be the land of the happy and free, a democratic country where everyone is supposed to enjoy equal rights, but it is such an unsafe place for women. In 2019-2020, 53,293 sexual offenses were reported, and this is an average of 146 per day. Imagine, you and I stay in a country where 146 women and girl children get raped every day. And if you know what rape is, and if you know what sexual intimacy is, and if you know how evasive it is, if you know how intrusive it is, then we'll begin to imagine this is huge, this is serious, At the start of level 3 lockdown, 21 women and children or girl children were murdered in a space of 2 weeks, leading to President Cyril Ramaphosa citing gender-based violence as one of the 2 devastating epidemics. He said we have got 2 devastating epidemics in South Africa, COVID-19 and gender-based violence. And it is sad to say that though COVID-19 has been with us for almost 2 years now, or for at least in a space of a bit closer to 2 years, gender-based violence has been with us for decades. We are talking about women who are being subjected to pain, who are subjected to this violence, who are being subjected to this state of being oppressed, of not being free. And this has been happening for years. And I want to address now some facts and myths around gender-based violence. It is a myth that gender-based violence includes only physical abuse. It also involves, or it can manifest as sexual, emotional, verbal, and psychological abuse. One of the myths is that sometimes hitting your partner is a sign of love. And some women actually enjoy being rough-handled and take it as a sign of being loved and valued. Imagine. The fact is, love shouldn't hurt. And abuse changes the core and personality of the person who is being abused, to the fact that sometimes they can collude as a result of maybe feeling defeated, or because they have internalized these deviant attitudes to the point where abuse seems normal. But otherwise, love shouldn't hurt. Nobody enjoys to be pushed around, to be hit, to be violated. It is also a myth to say that women allow themselves to be abused. They could leave their partners if they really wanted to. Women who try to leave have an increased risk of ongoing and even escalating violence, including threats of death, separation from their children, etc. In fact, women are sometimes prevented from leaving violent relationships precisely because of the fear that he is going to kill me. And in some cases, he goes ahead and he kills the woman. And in some cases, women don't leave because of unemployment, because of shame and guilt, and because also of lack of options, no safe housing, or the stigma of divorce as well. It is a myth to say that men and women are equally violent to each other. The majority of those who are affected by GBV, particularly intimate partner violence, are women and girls. In fact, if you look at the global stats, globally, almost 47% of all female victims of homicide are killed by their partners, which shows that the cases of gender-based violence are more prevalent on females. And of course, it could be not just because they are physically maybe weaker than males, but it is because violence is not just about physical strength. It is an issue of power and control. And we know that patriarchy is so prevalent in our circles. So yes, there are cases where men get to be maybe exposed to violence by women, but the majority of all those cases, it is purely women and girl children. It is also a myth to say that domestic violence is a private family matter in which the state has no right to intervene. How a man treats his partner is a private matter. And we see it a lot when people say, just pass out of my business. This is between me and my partner. You have no business interfering in this matter. Violence against women is a human rights violation. And the society holds the responsibility of protecting those who are more vulnerable. Regardless of whether it occurs in the family or in the public sphere, no one deserves to be pushed around. So it is our societal obligation to actually stand against the perpetrators. No one can say, this is my wife and I'm gonna, in fact, no one is anybody's property. It is also a myth to say a man cannot rape his wife or partner. All forced sexual intercourse is rape, irrespective of whether the survivor is married or is in a relationship with the perpetrator. No means no. And the sooner we get that, the better for everyone involved. Now, there are many forms of gender-based violence, and I'm going to touch briefly on these. And unfortunately, because we need to keep this within a certain time frame, we cannot go all out in terms of talking about everything that is important in this topic. We cannot obviously kill this elephant in just one go. It would have to take us session after session after session. So what are the forms of gender-based violence? I would like to bring this to you. There is domestic violence, which is also called domestic abuse or intimate partner violence. This is a pattern of behavior that is used to gain or maintain power and control over an intimate partner. And it encompasses many things. There is economic violence, which involves making or attempting to make a person financially dependent by maintaining a total control over financial resources, withholding access to money, or forbidding attendance at school or employment. There are some women who have got no right to earnings. There are some women who get to have rations given out to them by their partners. Sometimes there are some women who, after working hard for the whole month, they've got to take the whole salary and hand it over to the partner. And he's the one who decides whether you're going to get 100 rands for your private needs or whether you're going to, they can't even buy roll-on. They can't even buy sanitary pads. The partner is the one who has got to actually give an okay. And there are women who are involved in relationships where they are not working. And because they're not working, they're subjected to slavery. They don't have the right to how the financial resources are used within their relationship. And of course, there is psychological violence, which involves causing fear by intimidation, threatening physical or harm to yourself, the partner or children. You know, some people will even use that to actually make the woman stay, saying, if you leave, I'll kill myself, or I'll kill you and the children. Sometimes they even threaten to destroy pets and property. And we have seen in the social media in the past few months where a woman had actually managed to get herself out of the relationship, and the man went ahead and he destroyed the property. All of these are made to coerce the person and to make them submit and stay in that relationship. We have got emotional violence, which includes undermining a person's sense of worth through constant criticism, belittling one's abilities, name calling, or other forms of verbal abuse, or not even allowing the person to see close friends or family. Of course, there is physical violence, which involves hurting or trying to hurt a partner by kicking, by banging, by hitting, by pinching, by choking, slapping, hair pulling, biting. And you know, it is said that sometimes these things get to be perpetuated sometimes by people who are called church people, by people who call themselves Christians. You know, I've spoken to women, and this woman said to me, you know, there were times when before going to church, my husband would choke me literally with a scarf. And after some time, he would just give me a few minutes and he would say to me, pull yourself together, we're going to church, and I don't want no drama once you are there. And she says, this man of God is going to take the podium, he's going to preach, he's going to be delivering a beautiful sermon. I miss people who are saying, amen, hallelujah. And she said, I would have to sit there and fake a smile because his eye would constantly be moving towards where I'm sitting. And I knew that if I did not act up, if I did not do what he expected me to do, I would get it when I got home. There is, of course, sexual violence, which involves forcing a partner to take part in sex, whether the person is giving consent or not. This is, of course, one of the most invasive ones, because, I mean, it just breaks the essence, the core of who a girl or a woman is, you know, having this violent act against your will. And remembering that in South Africa, the age for consent, for consent in sexual activities is 17. And now sometimes this is done against a person's will because the person is a child, the person maybe has got a mental disability, or maybe the person is severely intoxicated and they don't even know what is happening to them, or they are unconscious as a result of alcohol and drugs. And we do see a lot of this, particularly in school settings and in tertiary institutions, where someone will be going out to have a drink with friends, or going out maybe to the shops just to have coffee, and they will spike your drinks, and the next thing you wake up is the next morning, you don't know what has been happening to you, and it is because you have been violated. Now, rape. Rape is, okay, there's sexual harassment, of course, and then there's rape. Sexual harassment will include things like grabbing or pinching or slapping or rubbing against a person's another person in a sexual way. It can also include non-physical forms such as catcalls, those ways of what maybe proposing. There are these ways that used to be glorified and they used to be acceptable, where there'll be that whistling, where a woman will be passing, and then everyone will be just turning towards her, and they'll be calling her names. They'll be commenting maybe on her structure, on her hips, or on her boobs. And all these are sexual harassment because they feel a woman with a sense of shame, and they make a woman so scared and so fearful and so anxious, to the point where I know myself as a woman, I dread it if I have to pass along a group of men, because I can imagine, even as I'm passing, I can imagine all those eyes turned towards me, the people calling me names, whistling and making all these nice remarks that make you feel so undressed, And imagine if I, as an older woman, get to feel this way. Imagine these little girls, imagine the teenagers who have not even learned to actually be so comfortable in their own skin. Sexual harassment, maybe asking for demanding sexual favors, sexually suggestive staring, stalking, or even exposing one's sexual organs. And of course, there is rape, which is now the non-consensual vaginal, anal, or oral penetration of another person with any bodily part or even with an object. And of course, there is corrective rape. Corrective rape is a form of rape that is perpetrated against someone on the basis of their sexual orientation or gender identity. It is intended to force the victim to conform to heterosexuality or normative gender identity. Just imagine, in our spaces, sometimes the townships or urban areas, rural areas, or wherever we are, there are cases where a woman will actually have 5 men gang rape her because they are saying, we are teaching you and showing you what it is to be a woman. And all of this is done in a bid to actually force the person to conform to heterosexuality, simply because people don't agree with the style, with the lifestyle, or with the choices the person has made, and they think they are going to use this as a form of punishing her. And then there is femicide. Femicide is the intentional killing of a woman because she's a woman, but it can also be defined more broadly to include killing of women and girls. There is human trafficking, which is the acquisition or exploitation of people through means such as force, fraud, coercion, or deception. And this heinous crime ensnares millions of women and girls worldwide, many of whom are sexually exploited. It always makes me feel so sad when I see, whether it's on Facebook or in some of these social media platforms, where you'll see a beautiful face of a girl or a young woman missing. Imagine what it must be like to you as a mother, as a father, to have your child be abducted and you can't even eat for days, for weeks, for months. As you eat, you're wondering, is my child safe? Is my child protected where she is? Where did my child go? And I've said with women who say, I just wish I could just find their remains so that I could know that at least my child is no longer in pain. And these are the things that are perpetrated against vulnerable people, simply because some people want to become rich, some people want money. And then one of these forms of gender-based violence is female genital mutilation. Female genital mutilation includes procedures and intentionally, it includes procedures that intentionally alter or cause injury to the female genital organs for non-medical reasons. Do you know that there are parts in our countries, in Africa and some other parts of the world, where a woman will have her private part altered just because it's a necessary step in preparing her for adulthood and marriage. And actually, when these operations are done on the women, they are told to endure all this pain because it's gonna be worthwhile at the end, because you can get to please your husband. Imagine bearing all this pain, having parts of yourself altered simply because you're trying to please a man. And these are things that happen in our communities. And of course, there is the popular custom of umutwala, which is child marriage, where parents will get together and they will agree that the woman or the girl has got to be married off, sometimes to an old, I don't even know whether I should say disgusting man who actually has the audacity to actually have sexual relations with a child, a 16-year-old, a 17-year-old. I'm talking about a 50-something-year-old man who will actually want sexual favors from a child. And sometimes in some cultures, these are normalized because there will be a bridal price that will be paid. And the parents will feel like, a girl child anyway, what is a girl child good for? We need to marry you off so that we can make money out of you. And these are some of the atrocities that we talk about when we're talking about gender-based violence. There is online or digital violence. Of course, online or digital violence against women refers to any act of violence that is committed, assisted, or aggravated by use of information and communication technology. We know about cyberbullying, which involves sending intimidating or threatening messages. We know about sexting, which involves sending explicit messages or photos without the recipient's consent. And we also know about doxing, which involves public release of private or identifying information about the victim. These are all ways that are used to subjugate women and to oppress them. What are the drivers of gender-based violence? I am going to read to you this poem before I get into this part. I got flowers today. I got flowers today. It wasn't my birthday or any other special day. We had our first argument last night. He said a lot of cruel things that really hurt me. I know he was sorry because I got flowers today. I got flowers today. It wasn't our anniversary or any other special day. Last night he threw me into a wall and started to choke me. It seemed like a nightmare. I couldn't believe it was real. I woke up this morning feeling sore and bruised all over. I know he must be sorry though, because he sent me flowers today. I got flowers today. It wasn't Mother's Day or any other special day. Last night he beat me again, and it was much more worse than all the other times. If I leave him, what will I do? How will I take care of my money? How will I take care of myself? What about money? What about my kids? I'm afraid of him and I'm scared to leave, but I know he must be sorry because he sent me flowers today. I got flowers today. Today was a very special day. It was the day of my funeral. Last night, he finally killed me. He beat me to death. If only I had gathered enough courage and strength to leave him, I would not have gotten flowers today. You ask, why didn't she leave? I ask, why did he hit? So what are the drivers of gender-based violence? Gender-based violence cannot be attributed to any single factor. And I'm going to try to touch upon some, and I cannot exhaust them in this platform. But it is an interplay of individual, community, economic, cultural, and religious factors interacting at different levels of society. Individual factors and that play a part in this. For instance, many studies have shown that violence or violent behavior is a learned behavior for both men and women. These studies argue that young people who grow up in households characterized by violence are more likely to normalize violence in their own relationships later in life. Exposure then to childhood physical violence and witnessing violence between parents or primary caregivers is a predisposing factor. To a certain extent, our homes are the factories that produce what we see. Children see us doing it. Children grow up in such environments and they can internalize these patterns. And when they are faced with similar conflicts, then they actually can just dig into what they've seen done, and then they can perpetuate it. Adverse childhood experiences, e.g. being bullied, being subjected to extreme poverty, or suffering traumas as a child, this makes someone vulnerable also to become an abuser later in life. And then, of course, there is the plight of absent fathers, particularly in our Black communities. Currently, there is an overwhelming majority of Black children in South Africa who live without biological fathers. In fact, it is said that in South Africa, amongst the Black communities, around 70% of children live in a homestead where there is no father. The plight of absent fathers, children not having role models, children having to father themselves. I've had some clients who are men who say, I was fathered in the streets. I don't know what it means. It means to see a mother and a father. And he actually said to me, when I was at school, we would actually laugh at anyone who was coming from a family where there was a mother and a father. Can you see how what is normal has become abnormal now? If you're coming from a home where there is a mother and a father and they are married, that is quite abnormal. You appear like you're someone from a different planet. Now, what is normal now is children who are roaming the streets, who are fathering themselves. How does this affect children? I mean, this affects them negatively, especially boy children, some of whom then grow up feeling rejected, and then they are filled with anger and bitterness, and then they become violent and aggressive later in life, displacing the feelings that they have upon people who have let them down. They displace them now upon those groups that are vulnerable, such as girls and women. There's also the issue of mental disorders. I'm so glad that July was a month that was dedicated to men and their health. And I have seen on different platforms where issues that relate to men were addressed. One of the reasons that may make people to be aggressive and violent is if their mental health is challenged. People struggle to regulate their emotions. People struggle with anger management. Some people actually have got mental disorders such as psychopathy, which is a neuropsychiatric disorder that makes someone deficient of emotional responses, or that is characterized by deficient emotional responses, lack of empathy, and poor behavioral control. We have got disorders such as IED, the intermittent explosive disorder, which is an impulse control disorder characterized by sudden episodes of unwarranted anger. And people who have got this disorder are hostile, they're impulsive, and they've got this recurrent aggressive outbursts. And if these are not diagnosed earlier so that they can be treated, or people to be taught skills of how to regulate their emotions, then these are the people who just go out and they unleash their anger on anyone. We have seen road rage, and we have seen aggressive, violent behavior among people in our communities. There are, of course, economic factors. We know about the status of the economy, particularly in our country. Lack of economic independence among women is one of the key drivers. Women will ask, if I leave, how will I make it in life? How will I finance how will I pay for my necessities? What about my children? It is one of the reasons that women stay. Many women stay for their children. They stay because they cannot make ends meet by themselves. But on the other hand, it actually, the reverse is true. For those women who have actually made it and have become financially independent, it now comes back to haunt them. There is this pushback now because women if a woman becomes financially independent, she's more assertive, she's more in charge of her life. Now the partner now looks at this, and it represents loss of power and authority. And you know, those men who have culturally been ascribed the roles of being the head of the household, protector, provider, once he is in a position where a woman earns more than him, then he feels like he's being challenged. Once a woman now has got a better employment or has got better resources, the woman becomes threatened now to assert his maleness. You know this toxic masculinity. To assert his maleness now, he does that through violence and aggression. And of course, there is the influence of culture, tradition, and religion. Culturally, males are often placed in powerful positions in relation to women due to practices such as lobola. We have had men who actually think because they paid lobola, which is a bridal price, they feel like they own a woman now. They feel like if you live on my own terms. Some men actually tell women, you are part of the furniture. I paid for you. I spoke earlier about ukutwala, where women are actually forced into marriages without their consent. And this has become normalized now because some people think this is culture. It becomes normalized with both males and unfortunately females being socialized into conforming to these cultural and religious practices. And unfortunately, these are the practices that implicitly or explicitly condone and tolerate gender-based violence. The two main drivers of intimate femicide are jealousy and possessiveness. These feelings are rooted in notions of hegemonic masculinity, in which men see women as their property, which they need to maintain power and control over. These men actually use guns sometimes to intimidate their partners, especially when they threaten to leave their abusive relationships. In these kinds of relationships, men will kill their female partners and they will also kill themselves. Others will kill everyone in the family, including their children. Of course, there is substance abuse and gender-based violence. Alcohol is linked with an increased risk of all forms of interpersonal violence, including GBV. For example, it has been found that men consume alcohol before abusing their partners. And it's not that it is alcohol that makes them abuse. They actually use alcohol as an excuse, which is why they'll then be like, I was drunk. I mean, you know me, I would never hit you. I would never hurt a fly. So alcohol. And we know that in our communities, there's such a huge number of people who are abusing substances and drugs. We know that there are people who are suffering from this mental disorder, which is substance and drug abuse. So women find themselves now trapped in a cycle of violence and even justify sometimes their partner's violent behaviors. He was drunk, but he's generally sweet when he's not drunk. The issue of guns and gender-based violence. Guns are a significant cause of violent death in South Africa, particularly because some of the perpetrators are men in uniform. We have seen how prevalent it is for policemen, for security guards, for people who work in an environment that allows them to have guns, how quick it is for them to use these guns to threaten or even to hurt their partners. Why is it so hard to leave abusive relationships? You know, some of us think it's so easy. You can just get up and go. It is not as easy because, you see, emotional abuse destroys your self-esteem, making it impossible, or it feels impossible for you to start fresh. You know, sometimes you have been so battered that you don't see your worth. You are a failure, you are a nobody will ever want you. And at times you internalize these statements and you end up feeling like, nah, I would make it. I might as well die in these relationships. And of course, the cycle of abuse also makes it hard for some women to leave. Remember that the person who's abusing the woman is not always this hard, cruel master. You know, sometimes there is a honeymoon phase where there is makeup, where they buy flowers, like in the poem that I shared, you know, and then that will be followed by calm, where there's no problem. The guy has apologized. He's sorry. It won't happen again. It's because I love you so much. I won't bear it if you left me. And the woman is kind of like, she believes, or she's sometimes coerced to actually staying, because there's been the honeymoon phase where there was joy and happiness, and then there's calm, but that is usually followed by tension built up, and then there's abuse incident. So you find women being caught in this cycle. Sometimes women don't leave because it is dangerous to leave. Very, very dangerous. In fact, women who leave are sometimes 70% more likely to be killed than those who stay, simply because most of the violence, the killing, happens during that time when the woman leaves. It's also not just hard to break up safely. It's also hard to escape the cycle of control that I've spoken about. Also because there's fear of being censored, judged, blamed, marginalized. You know, we've heard things from our communities where they say, we've got the abantu bazothini syndrome, where what are people going to say? Kuyabekezelwa emendweni, like you must just emendweni imbizo ibama ichisa. All of these things that have been passed on sometimes from our grandmothers to our mothers to us, that you must enjoy in marriage. You know, you must enjoy. And sometimes people will use the Bible. You know, the Bible will be used against you. Don't you have faith? Don't you try to trust God to fix the situation? Why are you taking the matter into your own hands? Or don't leave, because if you leave, all men are like this. And all of these things, they make it hard for someone to leave. And some women actually even feel personally responsible for their partner or for their behavior. After a conflict, an abuser will sometimes turn the situation around and will make it appear that the woman is the one who actually makes him do it. And we call this gaslighting, where you say, now if you didn't do this, I won't do that. Now don't anger me. Now stop talking to me like that. Stop coming home late. You know me, when I'm stressed and frustrated, don't ask me for money. And the woman now begins to think, you know, some women will be in such an abusive environment that sometimes will be hit because the food was too cold or the food was too hot. And then you'll tell you, now you must learn to know the temperature of food that I want. So you find that a woman becomes personally responsible. If I try to do it the way he wants, then he will not abuse me. And then some women believe that if they stick it out, things might change. Some people, particularly people in the Christian community, because we pray, we fast, we've got people who are helping us to pray, we believe in God, we've got so much faith, and we trust God to change the situation, we think we are going to stay, not knowing that no one is going to be changed against their will. You can take a horse to the river, but you can't make the horse to drink it. Remember, forgetting that God has given us a sense of autonomy and we've got a power of choice. And God Almighty, though He is, but He cannot force somebody to change. So some people stay around because they are hoping there is going to be a change. A lot of people in abusive relationships stay in them because they love their partner. And of course, they love their partner. This is the father of my children. And we've got a life with this person. We've got a history with this person. I mean, we've got children. We have shared finances. And we've had good moments. So there's always that, oh, I can't leave it. I can't leave it. And of course, we're also afraid of a failure. You know, in our communities, we've got like a woman, a returned soldier. And we even joke about such painful things. Like we call people returned soldiers. And now you come back, you no longer know which side you fall on. Are you a wife? Are you no longer a wife? You're no longer a young woman. So you don't know where you fit. I've seen women in the church spaces where they say, you know, because you are now divorced, you don't even know, do I belong to the AWM or do I belong to YOM? Should I live with women or do I stay with the youth? And some people look at those things and they're like, no, I think I'm going to try and stick it out. It is important for you at home to be aware of the red flags and if you can, to leave before it becomes even hotter. If you feel that someone is controlling you and you don't have an opinion, if you feel like someone will do anything to win an argument, they will put you down and threaten you. If someone gets angry and jealous if you talk to somebody else, if you feel like you are always being criticized, you can't do nothing right, or if you are told that no one would want you, or I'm doing you a favor anyway by being in this relationship with you, or you feel like you're afraid to have an opinion or disagree, or you feel like your date is always telling you that if you change, then he wouldn't abuse you. If they make you feel like you're crazy, you're wrong, you're stupid or inadequate, or They have control of your time. You always have to constantly account for your time. Even 5 minutes, where were you during this time? Constantly checking you, constantly calling. You know, I've seen some women, particularly when they are not aware of the red flags. Some women will be like, oh, he loves me so much that he'll check me. He wants to know what was I doing at 3 a.m. Why was I online? And some women think it's actually a sign of love. It's a sign of obsession, and it is not cute. He's going to use that to control you. So anyone who wants you to account for all of your time, you should know right there that is a sign of someone who is an abuser. I am going to just quickly go to the last part of my presentation, the psychological effects of gender-based violence. People are caught in this bind because of the women who have got mental, who are involved in this abusive relationships. Then their mental health becomes compromised. They have mental disorders such as PTSD, depression, anxiety disorders. They suffer from nightmares and insomnia. There's low self-esteem. There's sometimes illness like somatic bodily complaints. They sometimes are so abused that they are constantly absent from work. Some women even resign from careers, and then there are high stress levels, and there are many others that we could speak on around the impact on school performance, on work performance, absenteeism, and so forth. And how can we respond to gender-based violence? Any attempt to respond to gender-based violence must take into account the contributing factors that I spoke about. The government has a role, the justice system has a role, but there also is a role for you and me. You know, sometimes you become so complacent because it is not happening to us. You know, one person has said, Albert Einstein has said, the world will be destroyed not by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything. And Edmund Burke says, the only thing that is necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men and women to do nothing. Martin Luther has said, those who do nothing while witnessing injustice and wrongdoing do worse than those who commit acts of injustice. And listen to what our own Desmond Tutu says, if you are neutral in the face of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. If you are neutral in the face of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. Some of us are in positions of power where we are able to advocate for those who are vulnerable and who are unjustly treated. Some of us are well-resourced and can offer support to individuals, to organizations, and we can sponsor events or activities. Remember, every bit helps. We have seen beautiful initiatives by organizations such as Brothers for Life, Sonke Gender Justice, Love Life. These are awareness and empowerment programs. And there are church programs also. In my church, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, we also have the End It Now program that actually speaks to issues of abuse, that runs awareness and empowerment programs for our church groups, including young people, the children, and adults. And within the KNFC conference, which is the conference to which I belong, we also have got an organization that is called Sinawe. Sinawe is an organization that has been formed by women. It has been in existence now for almost 2 years. And we got together as women. I'm one of the co-founders of the organization, and I'm the chairperson of that organization. We got together as women. We said enough is enough. No longer will our young girls be exposed with us being silent. And we remember how we were challenged by girls saying to us, all you older women know how to do is just to pray and fast, and that is it. And we decided that after praying and fasting, we needed to get up and roll our sleeves. Remember, even Jesus in Gethsemane, yes, he prayed. Yes, he was in anguish of soul, but he did not just leave it there. He got up and he said, Gethsemane, here I come. And we have been supported extensively by our conference. We've got a good working relationship with our conference, and we are attempting to give social support, psychosocial support to survivors. We've got people who are working and giving us legal support. We've got people who are in the social media platforms. We've got people who are praying, and we've got prayer teams. All of these are things that you can look for in your own community, or you can partner with communities such as us. We also work with other communities like Pepisa. We also work quite well with We Will Speak Out. What about you at home? What could you do You need to be alert and aware of such behaviors. You need to stop laughing at silly, dirty jokes that demean women. You need to stop endorsing stereotypes that keep women subjugated. You need to stop taking the bystander mentality, turning a blind eye and refusing to get involved. Just because it's not happening to your own wife or your own girl, you want to stand one day because they will have raped your own daughter. Is that what it's going to take to get you out of your comfort seat? Get involved. Stop supporting the perpetrator directly or indirectly, laughing at things that they are doing, not calling out their wrong behaviors, not standing up to say, stop that, stop that. Some of these perpetrators just need a firm voice. Women can fight for themselves, but imagine what a force we would be if we could have both men and women joining hands together, saying, not in our name, not in my space, not in the community where I live in, not in the church that I attend. Together, we can do more. We need to stop glorifying the ability to self-regulate, such behaviors where we find things like boys will be boys, aggression is aggression, violence is violence, stupidity is stupidity. Doesn't matter whether you are a man or you are a boy or a woman, you are a girl. And we should stop glorifying things that are silly and that cause other people pain. Charity begins at home. Respect women in your own circle. Respect your wife. Respect your sisters. Speak well to women. Speak well about women. Respect young girls. Affirm and validate young girls. Advocate for women and girls' rights. Refrain from posting content that is meant to hurt other people. Offer your resources and skills and time to an organization. Look for gaps in what is currently happening and see how you can also be involved. And now lastly, I want to speak to someone who is in an abusive relationship. Wake up to your value. And what determines your value is your maker, your creator, God. The one who says in Psalm 139, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. The one who says in Jeremiah 29, I've got good plans for you. I know the plans I have for you. The one who says in Isaiah 49, can a mother forsake her daughter or her son? He says, yes, though she may, yet I will never forget you. I will not forsake you. I have actually written your name. I've engraved your name in the palm of my hands. That is a man who gives you value. That is a man who gives you your sense of worth. Stop banking on other people to define what your value is. And remember, nobody that did not make you can break you. I'm going to say that again to you out there. You are a girl, you are a young woman, you are an older woman. Nobody that did not make you can break you. Stop obsessing about being in a relationship as if it's such a wonderful achievement and work on self-development. Stop the mentality of entitlement and give yourself what you desire. This Sabawell business, this Sabawell Wimpy Burger, this Sabawell McDonald's is not funny anymore. It is costing people their lives. If you Sabawell Wimpy, then take yourself to Wimpy. If you Sabawell a burger, take yourself and buy a burger. Stop banking on people to give you something. Go up, get up and get water for yourself. Realize that God has good plans for you. He did not create you to suffer. He did not create you to be somebody's doormat or slave. He's got good plans for you. You are the last born of creation. You are the cherry on top. And it says in Jeremiah 1 verse 5, I love this verse because it says here, before I formed you in your mother's womb, I knew you and I set you apart for a purpose. Identify supportive people and reach out to them. Identify supportive networks and organizations around you, such as Tutuzela Care Centers around you. And I pray that God will help you. I pray that God will make his countenance to shine upon you. I pray that God will give you the courage to know that you can stand with his help. And I pray that you may come to a realization that this is not the life that you were created for. And out there is God who loves you so much that he came to die for you. I pray that you may be blessed, and I pray that you will, with the power that you are going to get from God, get up and do what you know the Holy Spirit is asking you to do. Thank you.
Lord, why do you say